And joining us right now on the line, a guy that is no stranger all over North America, a guy that makes wonderful calls, and he'll be doing that again with the Vancouver Whitecaps taking on DC United. Jason deVos at TSN. Jason, welcome again.
How are you, Anthony? Are you doing okay today?
I'm very good. Yourself?
Very good.
Outstanding. Jason, let's talk about a busy weekend coming up. Let's talk about the game you'll be at. We're looking at the Vancouver Whitecaps, who have been red hot, and DC United, who have really just picked up on how they played last year. How do you see this all playing out?
Well, the Whitecaps have been in great form on home soil. BC Place, they just seem to find their groove, and certainly hoping that's going to be the case again tomorrow night when they take on DC United. The Whitecaps are an exciting side. They've got some very talented players. I really like the job that Carl Robinson has done in building this squad. The likes of Pedro Morales, Octavio Rivero, Matias Laba, all very talented, exciting players. And they've added another one in Uruguayan Christian Totera, who is likely to be involved tomorrow. I don't know that he'll start the game, but I would imagine he'll be taking up a place in the 18. So he's going to be a fan favorite in Vancouver, I'm sure, and someone the fans are going to really take to because he's about knee-high to a grasshopper, and he's a very talented player. He's got a nice left foot. He's quick with the ball at his feet, and I'm sure that the Whitecaps fans here in Vancouver are going to take to him very quickly.
Jason, Canadian soccer fans have been smiling since the start of the season watching Russell Teber play. Is this the guy that's going to help Canada possibly get to the Hex and maybe all the way to Russia?
Well, I think it's going to take a lot more than just one player for us to make it to the Hex and to qualify for another World Cup. And I think Russell's going to need a lot more help than the squad that he had at his disposal. Unfortunately, we just don't have enough players that are playing in top-quality professional environments for us to be a credible threat in CONCACAF, which is turning out to be a very, very competitive, difficult confederation from which to qualify for the World Cup. Having said that, I think Russell's had a fantastic start to the season this year. I thought he was excellent last week in their victory against Real Salt Lake, the first time they've managed to win on the road in Utah. So if he keeps up that form and keeps playing the way he is, I'm sure he's going to become a fixture in Benito Floro's squad for years to come.
Jason, I talked about this before the season even kicked off. The three franchises to me that have the blaring spotlights on them from the beginning of the season to the end to get into the playoffs are three major markets. That's Chicago Fire, Philadelphia Union, right here at TFC. Chicago has started out quite well under Frank Yallop. Philly is off and on, 1 week good and the next 2 weeks bad. TFC, we know what has happened there. How important is it to get these big markets like a Philly, Chicago, and Toronto in that mix for playoff spots?
Well, I think it's important to have the big teams in there. There's no doubt about that. You look across the league, the most followed teams are generally in the bigger markets, the likes of the LA Galaxy, Seattle Sounders, the following that they have, not just in Major League Soccer and in North America, but around the world as well. Those are the teams that people gravitate towards. And in a relatively young league like Major League Soccer, it's important to have your big markets be successful. Unfortunately, in Toronto, we've had to wait for success, and it's been a difficult start to the season for them after that great win in Vancouver to kick off the year in fine style in the first game on March 8th. But apart from that, the difficulties they've had have been, compounded by injuries and the fact that they're having to play their first games on the road. So another one on Sunday down in Orlando on the road against a very talented Orlando side. I think they've done very well down there. Adrian Heath's done an excellent job, I think, of building a competitive squad. And I expect Orlando to challenge for a playoff place this year. So it's not going to be easy for Toronto FC. There's no doubt about that. But victory down in Orlando will certainly go some way towards easing the discomfort that fans are feeling right now.
Let me ask you this, Jason, just very quickly on TFC, then we'll move on. If we had to do it all over again, do you think Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment TFC would have decided to play a couple games at Rogers Centre just so they didn't have to go on this long, extended road trip to begin the season, knowing how much money is spent on this team, knowing how much the spotlight would be on them at the beginning, and looking now how they flopped? You think that would have been a better option maybe?
Yeah, hindsight's a wonderful thing, Anthony, and it's easy to look back and say, well, they haven't started the season off on a great foot, and they've only won one of their first games. So, it was always going to be difficult. But the flip side of that, too, is if they go away and they play 7 games on the road and they pick up 2 or 3 victories, then they have a back-ended schedule, which is loaded up with home fixtures. So there's 2 ways to look at it. And I think, they've been a little bit unfortunate in the sense that they're still trying to find their feet as a squad. I think they've got new players. key players that have come into the squad, Javinko and Altidore specifically, who are still trying to find their feet and trying to, come to an understanding with their teammates. And then you throw in the injuries that they've had to deal with, and it makes it very difficult to be competitive away from home. Most teams struggle on the road, and they struggle to get victories away from home. So I'm not entirely unsurprised by the start of the season for TFC.
Let's talk about the game I'm looking real forward to watching is Seattle and the Portland Timbers. You know that area. You're there now. I think to me, Vancouver, Portland, Seattle Sounders, those are the three best franchises for fan support on and off the field. It is crazy. It's like a European atmosphere. It should be like that this weekend when Seattle and Portland take it on. What are you expecting?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the Cascadia rivalry is the best in Major League Soccer simply because the fans bring it each and every time those teams play. And it doesn't matter who they play against. The fans are turning out in numbers, and the atmosphere, certainly in Vancouver, inside BC Place, is a fantastic one when the team is playing as well as it is right now. So anytime those teams play against each other, it just adds that little bit more intensity. You've got that rivalry of the derby games, which around the world, and there's many famous derbies around the world. But every single time that those two teams, take the field in that local rivalry, it's just that little bit extra spice added to the game. And that's certainly something we're looking forward to. The Whitecaps take on Portland next week. That's going to be a tough game for them. They'll have one eye on that as they take the field tomorrow because they know that these are games that they have to get results in if they're going to make the playoffs again. So, I think that those three franchises, Seattle, Portland, and Vancouver, are certainly leading the line in terms of fan engagement and fan experience when those games are kicking off.
Lastly, before we let you go, Jason, we really appreciate your time. The Red Bulls and the LA Galaxy, this should be a wonderful matchup. The Red Bulls have not missed a beat this season. LA has struggled, some injuries. I don't think Keane will be in the lineup. And this is a squad that Bruce Arena really lashed out against when they played Vancouver and they lost that game. He was not happy with the compete level. He was not happy on a lot of parts of that game. Talk about this one.
Well, the LA Galaxy are always going to make the playoffs, and they're always going to be one of the favorites because Bruce Arena is arguably the most successful manager in Major League Soccer, or even in the history of U.S. professional soccer. He's done a fantastic job there once again. And yes, maybe they aren't hitting the heights that you would expect them to early on, but they didn't do that last year either. So I have no worries about them and where they're going to finish. And they'll definitely be one of the top three teams going into the playoffs, I'm sure. New York Red Bulls, you have to give Jesse Marsh a lot of credit, and I'm really happy for him because a nicer guy you will not meet in Major League Soccer. I thought he was a little bit hard done by in Montreal and maybe didn't get the support that he needed to be a success there. He took a little bit of time out away from the game and traveled the world with his family, and now he's back in New York in what was a difficult situation when Mike Pecky was removed as head coach. The fans were not happy. But I'm sure that they're happy now, given the success that Jesse Marsh has brought to that team early on in his tenure. And I'm hopeful and confident that he's going to be able to carry that good work as he carries on this season. But it's a tough one against the Galaxy, who they have quality throughout their side. And when they don't play well, it's sometimes the worst time to play against a team like that because there's going to be a bounce back from them.
Jason, just as we let you go, just a quick comment from you. We haven't spoken since the changes took place in the Ontario Soccer Association. Johnny Misley taking over as executive director, Gary Miller as technical director. Talk about these two positions in Ontario, the engine of Canada.
Well, they're both very important. I've met with Johnny Misley. I was impressed by his vision, his intellect, and his desire to see change happen and be affected in Ontario. I think that's really important because the bulk of our players in Canada come from Ontario. So it is important that we have somebody who understands the business side and also can engage with the technical people. Gary Miller is someone I've known for the best part of 30 years, and I'm delighted that he got the job because you won't find anyone who's more switched on and who understands Canadian soccer more than Gary does. And I'm hoping that his appointment is going to galvanize youth soccer in Ontario as opposed to, divide it as we've seen for so many years and so many decades, I suppose. Gary obviously coming from the private sector with the private academy world, and hopefully he can blend those two worlds together, which has certainly been our intention for many, many years now. And hopefully Gary's appointment can have success. He'll certainly have my support, and I'll do everything I can to help him out in that venture.
Great of you to join us, Jason. Have a wonderful weekend. Safe travels back home, and we always appreciate you giving of your time. Thank you so much, and again, enjoy your weekend, Jason.
Thanks, Anthony. You too.
That is Jason DeVos of TSN. He is one of the class acts in the business, always has time for people and always has time to shake hands and talk the game that we all like. And this is why a lot of people have a lot of time for Jason DeVos.